What's up, guys?
You right?
We are good, man. We're just preparing for our tour around the UK tomorrow. Starts
Okay, I
tomorrow.
love it. I love your
Yeah.
music. I love you. You guys just have this niche of like, it's like you really are evolving this art form, and you're doing it in very unique and wonderful ways. It's such an organic, deep sound. I love it. I mean, I'm a jazz guy, obviously, because I have a
Right.
show, but I
Yeah.
just love all of the other elements that can come into it because there's just no borders. It's like jazz is like outer space. There's no end. It just stretches into all these stars and cosmos. So it's always fun, man. I always love to see where it goes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joe.
So,
Appreciate it.
where are you located exactly?
We're in Bristol in the UK, in
Okay.
England.
Okay. So where
Yeah.
is that from? I'm
If,
just
if if
thinking.
you if you have London and you go
Okay.
directly west,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
so
Okay.
like we're on the like what's called the West Country, or like the border of the West Country, so
Okay.
all of the
Yeah.
southwest of the UK.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
About 2 hours in a car west of London.
Okay. I've only been to
Mm.
London once. I was there after September 11th, 2001. I was in the back of a water taxi in
Oh,
Venice,
wow.
and my
Wow.
flight did not exist from Paris back to Kansas City, so I had to make my way back. So, long story short,
Wow.
we end up going underneath the English Channel, and I'm
Yeah.
taking down gin and tonics. And of course, all of the pressure gets to me. So, once I come up, we take a cab, and I've never driven on the opposite side of the road. So, I keep thinking this guy's killing me. Like, what the hell? Every once in a while, I'd
Wow.
be looking around. I'm like, oh my God, you're on the wrong side of the road. And anyway, it was so good to be in that Brit world. Everybody was so welcoming and wonderful, and we ended up going through Gatwick and making it back to America. So I always hold a very fond spot in my heart for that time period. And London's beautiful. I mean, it's just, um, you know,
Yeah.
and and
It really is.
and speaking of Brit rock, that's like all of my favorite Brit rock. All of my favorite rock
Good.
and roll comes from there. I mean, from Radiohead to
Mm.
Bowie to all those cats. So it's
Mm.
it's all on the radio.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Totally.
Nice.
but at any rate, it's so great to catch up with you. Thank you for taking a minute out. And to begin our conversation, I want to get into how much did surviving the pandemic affect the formation of this group, the evolution, and what you're doing right now?
That's a cool question. I don't think we've been asked that. So we formed about 3 years, I reckon, before the pandemic, and we kind of it definitely affected us in a big way, but because we formed kind of unconventionally for a band, I guess. Like we didn't really know each other too well before we formed this band, and we formed after the sort of a venue owner in Bristol, someone who runs this venue called the Gallimalfrey, reached out and said, "Hey, would you like to play basically every week for the rest of your lives?" And we said, "Yep, we'll do it." And we kind of came together for that and just sort of started improvising and playing these 90-minute sort of improvised shows every week. And that really informed like what we are today. And we're very much a live centric, in the room, sort of all together kind of band. And so I guess when the pandemic hit, that made it very different. We were quite lucky that our first like proper recorded music came out during the pandemic. So we'd already kind of made it just before lockdown hit in the UK and Europe. So it was quite nice that it didn't feel like everything just stopped for us. There was a lot of press and kind of radio that was happening for us while we could chill at home. We'd kind of done the hard work. But I think I think that was an interesting like period for us, but I don't know whether it changed the core identity of the band, which is, which after the pandemic we were able to kind of pick it back up and kind of keep going where we left off. I guess we stopped the weekly shows because we were quite lucky that that recorded music had done okay. So we started playing bigger shows and sort of doing wider touring around the UK and Europe. And yeah, so it's just been an evolution really of the same thing.
So how did you all kind of magnetically come together, and how did all of these music ideologies each of you hold blend in to create this sound of Waldo's Gift?
Well, I guess like so Jim wasn't entirely correct. Like me and Alan went to university together. Like we
Sorry, yeah.
we studied music. Well, both of us studied jazz. at the University of Southampton, and me and Alan have known each other for like 12 years, 13 years or something. And Alan moved to Bristol, what was it, end of 2015, early 2016 or so?
Yeah.
And then
15 September 2015.
I was working as a musician in Southampton, and then I was looking to move to London or Bristol. I came to visit Bristol, just fell in love with it. And then when I got here, Alan had started playing, like jamming with Jim, just like jamming ideas and stuff. And I'd never met Jim before. And Alan was looking for, well, they were looking for a bass player who likes similar music that they do. So yeah, jazz is a massive one, but we all grew up on very like heavy music. Alan used to play in a tech death band. I used to play in a metal band when I was younger. But we all grew up on a lot of
Post-hardcore, yeah.
post-hardcore as well. Lexus on Fire.
We all had similar teen years.
Yeah.
Aggressive teen years that I haven't grown out of yet. But that sounds kind of right. It's like we had some schooling in jazz. Especially Harry and I in university, we had a lot of jazz education, and then the growing up in the teen years on heavy music, and then I guess just for me personally, at the time that we were getting together, I was getting really into like Brian Eno and like ambient music and just drone music. And I remember buying my first pedal, that was like a freeze pedal and a loop pedal together. And that was just like, that really formed like my whole approach with you guys because, and that was really through ambient. So there's a lot of stuff coming together.
Yeah. Modern kind of left field electronic music, I think, is a sort of common ground as well. And I think a sort of goal is to try and make this guitar trio sound as little like a guitar trio as possible. That's always been been a kind of striving force for us.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've never been able to put my finger on Eno, like exactly like, you can with Moby and like Philip Glasses and all these cats. There's like this thing you can figure out what they're doing. I can never figure out what Eno's doing. I can never figure out where he's going. That's the beauty of it. And I think that's again the beauty of what you guys are doing. There's so many elements that are going on here. So I'm curious, before you form this band, you always had this idea of like, for instance, when you travel, like what is travel going to be like? What's this place going to be like? It's a mystery. And then the reality sets in. It's totally contrasts what you think it's going to be. So when you formed this band, what was your idea going in? And what has been kind of the reality of being together? What has been the difference between the ideology and the reality of being in this band?
It's funny. I'm not sure whether I ever consciously thought about a goal or ideology for this band. I think everything happened. I think like we said, it was so unconventional the way it came together. Like we still probably to this day have spent more time, actually maybe not now, but more time on stage back in those early days. Way more time on stage than in a rehearsal room, which I think is like the opposite to most bands. You rehearse loads, really practice for your first gig, and that feels like a big milestone. And so there's like a goal. But for us, we were doing more gigs than rehearsals. And so like, I just feel like it just really, it was so much like curiosity and playfulness. And it was so just, let's really slowly work it out and just build. And the fact that we had the support of this venue where we were kind of encouraged just to experiment and play around on stage. And, if you went to some of the first Waldo's gigs, they probably sucked real hard. And I think we just slowly sucked a bit less and slowly just converged on like a thing that we all enjoyed. And we felt like, this is it. This is a cool thing. This is a unique, fun thing that is like a unique combination of the three of us and like where we're at and what we've listened to, what we've done, and where we are right now. I don't know.
I think like also as well, what has informed the start of this band is on the residency once a month we would play other artists' music, or we would do like a night of a label or something. Like we did a Ninja Tune night of like Ninja Tune artists and Brain Feeder. We played like entire albums, so like we played like the entirety of Kid A in Rainbows by Radiohead and Black Sands by Bonobo. And just did a lot of like Floating Points, Crushed by Floating Points. Like we did a lot of interpreted a lot of music from other artists and musicians and bands in our own way. Like we did a whole night of Rihanna tunes one time. And like, so and having to do that once a month as well, I think definitely fed into what this style of music that we play like has become.
Yeah.
Like just drawing from lots of different influences. James Blake as well, massive influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, it's interesting, even with Radiohead, how many elements of them encompass jazz, that vibe, the whole, you know what I'm saying? There's like, I mean, they're
Exactly.
electronic rock, but there's a lot of elements that feel like it could fit within that jazz context.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
totally.
they've come a long way since Pablo Honey, haven't they?
Yeah, oh my God. I actually caught them in St. Louis, and what was the Hail to the Thief, I think. And everybody kept
Okay.
saying it all depends on what mood York's going to be in. And he was in a good mood. He was bad mouthing Clear Channel. He was on it that night, and it was a real magnetic show.
Wow.
So let me ask you this. Speaking of that show and what you do live, for each of you, what was the first early seminal live show that you saw that left an impression that made you think, I either want to get up there on stage one day, or it led you on your way?
When we were kids.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the earliest ones.
Like for me, like just generally Gary Moore, the guitar, like Irish guitarist,
Yeah.
like blues guitarist. But then I saw like a metal band called Sixth, which are a British metal band from like the early 2000s. Like yeah, when I saw them, I was just like absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
The first ever live show I went to see was Linkin Park, Wembley Arena. Um, and that's the one that's just jumping out to me. First ever like show I ever went to, and I think I just started playing drums, and like I just all I remember is just staring at the drummer, and so I feel like that's got to be a contender. I'm still a new metal kid at heart, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's coming in.
Yeah, and I think for me it was seeing the Red Hot Chili Peppers probably in the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. They were supported by James Brown, which was hilarious.
I can't
That's
believe you're at that gig. Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's the one that's popping out to me. I think I don't know whether it was like totally formative, but it was one of the first big gigs I went to, and
yeah.
yeah,
So you guys, this is your third album, correct? Together?
It's the first like studio album, debut
Okay.
album, yeah.
Okay.
But we've put out a lot of kind of EPs and yeah, maybe depending on what streaming thing, some of them list them as albums and whatever. But like, it's the debut studio album, yeah.
So what does that mean for you? For the debut album, the real shout out there, how does this feel
Yeah.
ultimately on a visceral level?
It's a crazy cacophony of emotions. Yeah, it's like one day,
Relief is a big one.
yeah, one day
Yeah.
it's like, woohoo, this is the best thing ever, and then one day it's like, oh my gosh, what this is a terrible album. This is everything's terrible. And then one day it's like, I'm so proud of what we've done. We should feel really proud and happy. So yeah, it's just a wild ride, I think, releasing anything, let alone the kind of pressure that's put on a debut album. But I'm really proud of what we've made. And I think it's a distillation. I think it's truly a kind of really honest distillation of like our journey to this moment, you know? And it feels very much like a kind of gathering up of like all the sort of experiences we've had over the last few years playing all these crazy like punk DIY shows and kind of learning what we are, how we play live together.
And it was recorded live as well. Like
Yeah.
we wanted to record it with us three playing in the same room together in a studio, but we recorded it. It is live. It is completely live, and we wanted to keep that kind of the energy from gigs that because like yeah, as Jim said, we formed as a live band, so it was trying to encapsulate that in recorded format is difficult. And like it's like we've definitely experimented a lot through like different EPs and everything, and it is the best distillation that we've made of like the live show.
How does the chemistry work with you guys? You've evolved over time, you've been together. How is this chemistry work for you guys to keep you together and moving into the future?
Great question. I think I value that we do have like a really open relationship. Like we can be very open and honest with each other, which I think is very important in terms of like keeping a band together. It's a very intense, even just with three people, like it can be a very intense sort of place to be in. It's like a family dynamic, but it's also a business, and it's also like you're under the pressure of performing live, and there's loads of adrenaline and stuff. So there's definitely like it's a very intense thing. So I think being able to openly, calmly, honestly communicate with each other is very important, and I value that we have that, and we have a laugh as well. Like that's important too.
Lots, yeah. We spent a lot of time in the car together.
Yeah.
As bands do, and it's like if you're not laughing when you're in the car together, it's like
what's going on?
It becomes very difficult. Yeah, or sleeping.
Laughing or sleeping. Yeah. Yeah.
So every day we wake up, we have these things that motivate us to get through the day. As musicians, what is it that gets you up every day and motivates you to look forward to creating this music that you're giving the world?
Coffee.
You know what's so funny about that, real quick aside? My wife got me tickets to see Jerry Seinfeld. He came to Kansas City in January. He's like a consummate stand-up guy. And he was up there, and one of his bits was, it all ends with coffee. Like after coffee, it's like, oh man, I got to go do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. It's like, he's like, coffee is the only real solid good part of the day. And then everything else can potentially be
Amen.
Which is hyperbole, but it's like, it's the idea of like, that's it. Totally right.
Yeah. Coffee's so good.
Yeah.
What's
just like I guess like just the drive to create and be better at your instrument, and like because me and Alan used to live together for 4 years with two other musicians, and you'd get up and somebody would start practicing, and then somebody else would start practicing, and then like you kind of like, oh, I need to get up and just start practicing now. And like it's just like I haven't been able to put my finger on why I have this drive to do music. Really, it's just like just something that I've always done, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys.
I feel like in this world of just endless consumption and taking everything in, like it genuinely is a privilege to actually honor like the foundational right to create that we all have, that I feel very, very blessed to do every day, which is the most natural instinct, I think, as well as to survive, to create is just something that we're all endowed with. And we actually have a band where we get up every week, we get to rehearse together, and we actually get to create together. We have a continual motivation, a continual space in which to realize that. And without that, it's very, very hard to be motivated. Like, all of my practice in the last years have been like only possible because really of this group and other projects that give it a time and a space to be realized. Without that, it falls flat. It doesn't go anywhere. So for me, that's what it is anyway. Just this continual space to actualize things regularly over and over and over again.
Yeah, totally.
The one thing you mentioned too, it's interesting. There is an infinite amount of choice that's out there. You can listen to anything, you can consume anything. So those that fall into you and your album and see you live and get your album, it's pretty cool to be able to give them that world that you envision. What's the best feedback you've gotten from a fan? Like whether at a show or otherwise, what just blew you away? You're like, oh my God, you didn't expect it.
So someone said, this is kind of ridiculous, but someone said, what phase of evolution did you guys skip to get the sound that you had? Which I thought was a very inventive compliment.
Totally.
It made me feel really great. I was straight after the show, I was beaming after that.
That's so
just
good.
For pure inventiveness.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind is we read like a review from something else blog, and they said like, this album will either be your favorite album of the year or your least favorite album of the year, but you won't just feel indifferent about it. It's going to make you either love it or you're going to really hate it. And I was like, you know what? I like that. At least it's giving some kind of big, strong reaction rather than just like, meh. So I enjoyed that write-up.
So let's say you come to Kansas City and you're going to do a couple of gigs, and you have to write kind of a short Twitter description of what you guys do to get people in to the seats that may not know Waldo's Gift. How would you bill and describe a gig that you would put on in Kansas City, Missouri?
That's a great question, Joe. Maybe we need your help to do that.
I mean, started one of the best. Somebody, I can't remember where it was. Like stylistically, somebody they said that we were like the sort of child of Mahavishnu Orchestra and Flying Lotus.
Yeah,
which I've always enjoyed the juxtaposition of, and obviously era juxtaposition of those two kind of influences.
Yeah, that is great.
But I don't. Yeah, I really like that. I don't know if that's worth.
I don't know
if that would promote the show or if it would just make me.
Yeah, turn people off. I just think it's like viscerally in the moment music. Like it's just that. It's like I don't really know how else to describe it, but it's just very that time, that space, that moment, those people. That's just what it, that's what it is. Yeah. It's a cliche that, bands say every show is different, but it really is. Because we've come up playing so many shows and come up writing the music that we play on stage, really, like this, it's where we feel most at home on stage, and it feels so, I wouldn't say effortless, but it feels very natural for us to be there, and it just means that, like, or for me personally, but I know these two as well, like I love playing in new places so much. Like my most memorable gigs and my most favorite gigs are when it's like, doesn't matter how many people are there, but like the first time we played outside the UK, first time we play in New City, first time you play here, because I don't know, everything's new, everything's exciting, and like I just really feed off that, this is totally not answering your question, how to bill it, but I just love the kind of newness of it, and so that's why I feel like it's just this really in the moment kind of. You take away a little postcard of like, oh wow, that's what that gig was then. It's very specific to Kansas City, you know.
Because we do like play the songs like slightly differently. Like we will change like what we're playing, bits and bobs, like you would with like in playing jazz and everything. Like we don't just play the same thing every single time we play our tunes.
Yeah. Well, I'm spitballing here, but maybe you could probably get a global audience if you said something along the lines of, Banksy is going to open up for us. We're finally going to see who this guy is, and then you.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
That's it. He's somewhere around here.
So, he is. And so let me ask you this. At the end of the day, why do you love jazz? I mean, and I'm just asking for, I know you have broad musical taste, but at the end of the day, why do you love jazz music?
It's pure expression, isn't it? Like that's the thing with jazz. It's pure. Obviously, there's jazz composition as an entire thing, and like obviously, like there are great jazz like Wayne Shorter, Pat Metheny, all that, like great jazz composers, but they're great improvisers as well, and like jazz really is just expression within the moment, isn't it? Like it's just like one of the purest kind of forms of musical expression, like in terms of like at that moment.
Absolutely.
And so when we were improvising and playing like essentially post rock at points, with like you're still just in that moment, in a flow state, essentially. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
I don't really. I think that's basically my relationship. It's like improvisation, the immediacy, the communicative element of it, the expressiveness. And
the magic of hearing an ensemble come together and
synergy.
The synergy and hearing people play off each other, in new and inventive ways every time, all the time, it's just such a joy to hear that.
So I just want you to know right now, I'm not going to ask the cliche question because I want people to just figure out what Waldo's Gift means. So I'm not asking you. I'm sure you get that all the time. I'm gonna let it remain a mystery, and they can figure it out by maybe coming to a show, or I'll kind of drive them that way. But Malcolm's Law is the new album. You guys are obviously getting ready to do live shows, so if anybody wants to pick up the album, they want to come see you live, any of the good business, where do they go?
Any of the good business, they can go to waldos.gift and they can get it there.
Okay.
But all the places. Bandcamp is a great place to buy the record.
Yes.
But it's in record stores as well. All the usual places that you consume your music with there. So that's where you can get it.
Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and story. I love the music. Best of luck, and hopefully I really do see you here in Kansas City. I won't expect Banksy, but to see you here with you.
Hey, we'd love to come, Joe. We'd love to come to the US. So
Absolutely.
Hopefully see you there soon.
Yeah, I'll keep.
Hello, friends. Joe Domino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Domino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedomino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.